Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's time we get this celebration started. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Poulin. I'm Don's favorite son-in-law. In fact, I'm his only son-in-law. So as this week went on, Christina, Susan, and Scott were developing plans for today's service. Part of those plans was who was going to officiate today's service. As you can see, I was not at that meeting. But here I am. Some of you may know that Don and I, we had a few things in common. You know, one is that unending love for his daughter. Secondly, a love for speed. And thirdly, we both were ordained ministers, believe it or not. Now, this by no means suggests that I'm qualified or equipped to be standing here in front of you today. What it does mean, for those of you that don't know me, I ask for patience and that you bear with me. And for those of you that do know me, well, we'll see how it goes. Nonetheless, I'm both humbled and honored to be trusted with this important role today. I first met Don when I was 26 years old. I was working for the sheriff's office and I was working nights. During that time, I was courting Susan. She and Mitzi Taylor were renting a house on Glade Street in the city of Muskegon Heights. And I would often stop over there in the evenings. It's a little bit out of my district, but I would go visit with her. One night, we were out on the terrace talking, and here comes this motorcycle. It actually was a mini GP, all right? So if you can imagine a sport bike, but reduce it 3 times. Comes whipping down the road, up on the sidewalk, and just kind of stops. Well, it was no other than Sue's father coming to see his little girl before a night out in the town on a mini GP. I remember thinking, this guy's pretty cool. I was racing motorcycles at the time, and we had something in common, and I'm just so glad that I was right on my first opinion of meeting him. On behalf of the Sanborn family and mine, I would like to thank everyone for coming out today as we pay a tribute to Don's life and to express our love and admiration for him, while at the same time trying to bring some sense of comfort to each other while showing our support to his family. I think we all can agree that Don wasn't particularly a religious person, so it's befitting that today's ceremony should reflect what he was, a kind, loving person devoted to his family and friends. But in spending the days preceding Don's passing, gathered with family and friends around him, sharing stories and expressing their love and appreciation to him, it was during this time that I had the opportunity to listen to the many conversations that were held with Don about his entry into heaven. Though some were built on satire, others were heartfelt and serious. These conversations made it clear to me that Don was in the right place in his heart. He had acceptance and clear direction of eternal happiness. Let's pray. Lord of all, we praise you for all who have entered into their rest and reached the promised land where you are seen face to face. Give us grace, as you have given Don, to follow in their footsteps, as they followed in the way of your Son. Thank you for the memory of those who have called to that you have called to yourself. Amen. This time we're going to listen to a music selection that Don had requested to be played this day.
All I know is the way I feel. When it's real, I keep it alive. is long. There are mountains in our way, but we climb a step every day. Love lift us up where we belong, where the eagles cry on a mountain high. Love lift us up where we belong, far from the world below, up where the clear winds blow. Some hang on to used to be, live their lives looking behind.
All we have is here and now. All our lives are there to find.
The road is long. There are mountains in our way, but we climb a step every day. Love lifts us up where we belong, where the eagles cry on a mountain high. Love lifts us up where we belong, far from the world we know, where the clear wind blows. Time goes by, no time to cry. Life's you and I alive. Day, love lifts us up where we belong, where the eagles cry on a mountain high. Love lifts us up where we belong, up from the wild we know, where the clear winds blow. Love lifts us up where we belong, where the eagles cry on a mountain high.
Okay, at this time, I would like to invite Don's daughter, Sue, up to the podium to speak.
Hi, everyone. I first want to thank all of you for your kind words, your Facebook posts, your emails, your text messages. I mean, it's very overwhelming to me. I know that my father would be impressed and overwhelmed to see all these people who cared about him. As most of you know, my father was quick-witted, with a unique personality, never acted his age, and could be very difficult at times. The first time I recall my father's wit was back in 1977 or 78. I was 7 or 8 years old. I was so small, I remember my head only hit to his elbow. It was a summer night where the sun was just starting to go down at the Mona Lake Boat Club. The boat club, as we called it, was having an annual beer tent. And yes, back then, children of all ages were allowed to go. I was standing next to my dad, who was surrounded by a bunch of his buddies, one of my dad's friends, and it could have been Denny Boyd, Dan Cooper, Bruce Pearson, Dale Asbury, Roger Bonner, one of many friends, goes to introduce himself to some new guy. I recall him being a similar build to my father with jet black hair. This new guy puts out his hand, introduces himself as, "Hi, I'm gay." Instantly, my father, with a huge smile on his face, reaches out to extend his hand to say, "Well, I'm not." The men in the circle all wailed with laughter. I took off running to find my mother, who was in mid-sentence talking with her friends. I interrupted her to ask, "What does gay mean?" She stopped and replied, "It means you're happy." And off I went. My father was a businessman selling jewelry for 68 years. His unique personality enabled him to make friends everywhere we went. Still today, when I go to a jewelry buying show, I get asked daily by vendors, "How is your father doing?" They all refer to him as a legend. Going back next year will be tough as I share the news of his passing. My father loved Muskegon. He always would say how lucky we were to live in such a beautiful place. He referred to it as being on vacation all year long. Another story I'd like to share. My dad and I took a trip to Cedar Point. I had been talking how incredible the new roller coaster ride called Maximum XL 200. A few of my friends and myself rode on this roller coaster the year prior. The year is now 1994. My dad was 56 years old. I don't recall why we were going to or through Ohio. I can only assume it was for a jeweler's show or for another boat. When we arrived, we went straight to the roller coaster. I was so excited. My dad took one look and said, "Yeah, let's start on a smaller one." So he takes me clear to the other end of the park, and we started on a roller coaster called Mean Streak. I even have the little picture to prove we went down it. Halfway through the ride, my dad grabs his chest. He told me, "I think I'm having a heart attack." Of course, I can't stop the ride, and I can admit I was scared, and I had no idea what to do. When the ride stops, he makes no attempt to draw attention to himself, but I was shaking. I took him to a bench. We sat there for 20, 30 minutes. He says, I think the ride shook me a little too hard, explaining that his insides were shaking. Personally, I think he was scared himself to death. After a while, he regains composure, and we were off to the next ride. The next roller coaster was called the Raptor. For most of you, if you don't know what that is, you sit in it and your feet just dangle. Now, this ride, it would flip and turn and twist. When my dad got off, envision this, when you are a little kid, and you have a baseball bat, and you put your head on the baseball bat, and you run in circles, and then you have to go straight. I couldn't figure out what he was doing. He would take 2 steps to the right, he'd walk 2 steps straight, and then you go to the right. And he'd take 2 steps straight, and then you go to the right. The only thing I can figure out is equilibrium was off. So, I gotta find my place, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. So looking back, I have to give him credit for even going on these rides. I don't know if I could do it today, but as his daughter, I don't know if I could back down either. From a daughter's perspective, you may not know my father was tough. One of his many lessons that I recall was he would start one of the countless arguments, disagreements, debates with me. He would wait until I was so angry that I couldn't speak. Then he would look at me and he'd say calmly, "Are you mad?" I'd reply, I'd be furious. My teeth were clenched. I couldn't speak. And he'd then say calmly, "You lose." And he'd either walk away from our conversation or he'd leave the store, meaning the jewelry store. So it took me a long time to figure out that he was teaching me to keep my calm, and that when you're mad, you can't keep your composure, you can't think straight. It was one of many lessons. And for that, it was making me a stronger person. He knew it was difficult to be a woman in this world. His way of reaching through tough times, but it made me into the woman that I am today. One thing I forgot. So for our final destination at through Cedar Point, my dad decided that he was going to find something that was suitable for the both of us to do, that he could enjoy. We stopped and we got a cartoon going. I love you, and I miss you, Dad.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, next we'll hear from Don's son, Scott, who just happens to be my favorite brother-in-law.
I just want to say that it's so overwhelming to us, the amount of people that our dad knew and people who loved him. It's really overwhelming. But on behalf of our family, we just want to thank everyone for coming out today. I had the best dad, a father, a friend, and a mentor. We worked together for 37 years. My dad had a great life. He told me he did. His family was everything. He loved Christina and Boyd, Joan and myself, Mike and Susan, his grandkids, Atherton, Samantha, Gavin and Garrett. And he had a lot of friends. And his friends all had nicknames for him. One of his names, of course, was Don or Donnie. The nicknames that I heard over the years were Chief, Sanford, Sanford and Son, Sam, Pops, Big Daddy, Big Money, of course, Papa and Grandpa. He said the only one that could call him Donald was his mother. You are Donald again, Dad. I was always amazed at the people that my dad knew and all the people that knew my dad. He had a great sense of humor. He would say, I think everything is funny. But sometimes it wasn't a good thing. I was always amazed at the things he knew how to do, and he taught me so much. He always had a smile on his face, and he was always willing to buy someone a drink. I have been told this week that my dad was the most generous man that he had ever known. Newt Beckstrom said that. I have been told this week your dad had one hell of a run. He did. Many people have said that. I believe Steve Essing said that to me. I've been told this week that not only did he live 83 years young, but those are Don Sanborn years. They are not the same as everyone else. Again, those are Don Sanborn years. Aren't those great? Rick Sly said that. Also, my father said to me one time, he said, my grandfather asked him when he was young, are you ever going to slow down? Must have been maybe in his early years, but nope, he never slowed down. I don't know this, but my dad broke his neck in Key West riding a moped. They put him in a cab, rode to Miami. Then they flew to Detroit. From Detroit, they came home. And at the Key West hospital, they did not catch his broken neck in Key West. They found it here in Muskegon. He broke the number 1 vertebrae in his neck, just like Christopher Reeves did. We have a picture, I think, on one of the boards up there of Dad with his halo on. Dad never retired, worked all of his life. He enjoyed the Mountain Lake Boating Club, going to Hardy Dam, car racing, snowmobile racing, working on his houses, and he had 4 houses in his block he worked on. He was up to his 4th house. He enjoyed boating, riding motorcycles, and lunch with his friends. Dad was always trying to make things go faster. He discovered he could get a lot more speed if he put more air pressure in the tires of his Isetta. It's a BMW Isetta. It has 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back. But he said he could make that thing go 10 miles an hour faster with he put more air pressure in it. Excuse me. Also, I believe he told me that he named that car Headhunter. He loved sports car racing. I did that with our mom. They had a Corvette and a couple of Corvettes, and he even would race on the frozen lakes with it, and also they enjoyed that very much. And he had a lot of trophies. Again, he made everything go faster. He would even put nitric oxide on his boats. Then he bought a STV, which was a Summerford Tunnel V. It was a pickle fork boat, 18 foot long, and it had a 300 horse Johnson outboard. And of course, he had to have the motor special made, more horsepower. That boat went 107 miles an hour in Mona Lake. I don't know how many ducks that he killed. He loved snowmobiling. He loved snowmobiling and to race snowmobiles. And when I was about 12, he asked me if I wanted to go to a race with him at the old McDonald's Snowmobile Club up in Rothbury. A few of his friends were going to meet us. Dad put me on his snowmobile, and we beat all of his friends. They told Dad that it wasn't that I beat them, but they said, "Hey, can you tell Scott to quit looking back at us as we're going down the track?" We started snowmobile racing together at Twisting Trails Snow Club. Then we raced at the Michigan Snowmobile Drag Racing Association, and then the ISR, which is the International Snowmobile Racing. Together, we won a few championships. We even won the 1996 World Series, which was awesome. We had a 600cc Polaris. My dad had a talent to make anything go fast. He even helped me when I was racing jet skis with my motors. Is anyone on my dad's email list? I've heard a few stories about that. You better be alone when you open it. My dad always, if you saw my dad, you always saw him. He always wore T-shirts and sweatshirts, and they always seemed to say something on them. So I brought this one. don't know if all you can see it. Okay. So what it says on it, it says boat racing. It says because football, basketball, baseball, and golf only require one ball. That's my dad's sense of humor. The other one that I saw recently, it was a squirrel, and it had a little acorn on it. And of course, what did it say? You want to see my nuts? My dad loved Miller Lite, rum and cokes, Southern Comfort Old Fashions. He liked meatloaf, banana bread, filet mignon, mashed potatoes, cold slaw, pie, ice cream, probably